Welcome back. I was perusing around Pinterest the other day when I came across the picture of this beautiful fall-inspired look. It is like the most beautiful red gingham, but like a tiered skirt, squared neckline that's gathered in, and I knew that I needed to have that into my wardrobe. So that's what we're gonna do today. In this video, you will see me using the pattern, the M7974 from McCalls. This pattern is very well used without the sewing community on YouTube. Quite a few creators have done this exact pattern, but I'm going to try to pattern hack it to make this pattern specifically look like that reference image. So for fabric, I chose to use this very sturdy cotton bedsheet. It's just this beautiful like red and tan and white check. This bedsheet was probably a twin or full. I have already pre-washed it and set it aside in waiting to make this project. Originally, I had wanted to make this exact pattern. This is the reason why I bought the pattern, was because I saw Rosary Apparel use this pattern to make a dress out of it, and it looked so good. I needed it for myself. Please ignore my neighbors are getting their house re-sided. I have no control over that. So as soon as I saw her video, I knew that I wanted to try to make it myself. I found this at the thrift store maybe a few months later. Never touched it for maybe like 2 years. So the first step is to get the pattern ready. So following the instructions for the pattern sizing, it says that I should be a size 14, which we will get back to that later. So I'm going to start out by cutting all the pattern pieces for the size 14. And because I don't know if I want to reuse this pattern again, I did keep in all of the extra little curves for all of the other patterns. And then because I'm also a little insane, I decided to then put it onto a thicker paper for me to use as my pattern. Yeah, that took a lot longer than I thought, but I think that it was worth it in the end, so that's what I did. I will usually remake all of my patterns from that tissue paper that I feel like just tears and disintegrates into something a little bit more sturdy. So this is the original bodice neckline. It has the curve along the bottom that attaches to the waist, and then it has this straight bodice that has a V-neck shape. Basically, I just took this paper pattern, brought it up from the center front, over across, got rid of the gathering along the front, brought it down to a skinnier strap, and across to make a square neckline. And that gave me something that looks like this. So once you have all that done, it is time to make a mock-up. It's very important to do a mock-up, especially because we are going to be making some alterations. And here I took some extra fabric that I had in my storage and just cut out all the pieces to make a mock-up. This does not have to be perfect, it does not have to match. I just need to put it together to know if it will fit and if the square neckline is going to work. So once I sewed up the mock-up, I tried it on, making sure to match up the center fronts. Just a few little modifications that I had to make. It seemed to be a little bit bigger than what I intended, but I figured that I could probably take it in along the sides like some other creators had done. It does seem to go on the looser fitting side. So for size 14, it says that the bust is 36, the waist is 28, and the hip is 38. Oddly enough, those are my exact measurements, and it turned out way bigger than what I thought. So that's why it's important to do a mock-up, so that you don't make those mistakes after you finish the final garment. It's a sad day when that happens. I started off by making some bias tape and making the front ties for the dress by sewing the tube of bias tape in half and turning under the edges. The straps I made 9.5 inches plus the length of the square neckline. After that, I added the interfacing to the waist, the front bust facing, and the skirt front. So then we get to start on the bodice. Starting out by gathering the underbust between the two notches. Then I attach the bodice fronts to the back yoke at the shoulders. Next step, you gather the back bodice and then attach the back bodice to the back yoke and then press the seam upwards into the yoke. Then I attach the front bodice facings to the second back yoke that you cut. Then ironing all the seam allowances towards the yoke. Pin the facings to the bodice, attach and finish with an understitch. Then I left a small hole at the side of the square neck to insert the strap for the channel. I did a slip stitch around all of the edges of the facing, sewed from underneath the corner of the neckline, underneath the strap that we have attached, creating a channel and finishing at the center front so that it can create a gathered effect. And then I just did a quick baste under the armhole and on the lower edges of the bodice. Next part was pinning the waistband to the bodice front and basting it in place. Next, I sandwiched another waistband with interfacing and sewed the front edge and the bodice edge. This is where I made the mistake and had to go back and fix. The curve of that front edge along with the square neckline has to be level. I made the mistake of having the square neck match the curve. It made it so that the fronts, instead of being like this for the neckline, ended up being a little bit like this. So all I had to do was take out a little sliver from here so that it would sit a little bit more straight. Press and baste the raw edges together, and then I serged the sides. Last thing to do for the bodice was sewing the front and back at the sides and then pressing the seams flat. Next, moving on to the sleeves. Along the opening of the hole, 1/4 inch away from the edge, adding bias tape to the open edge. So now for me, bias tape is not always the best option, especially when you have that tight of a curve. So what I found helped was just actually putting another piece of fabric underneath, tracing the cut of the hole, facing them good sides together, and sewing around that edge so that I flip it all inside out. That just makes a cleaner flip for me, so I don't have any bulk where that bias tape has to curve all the way around that edge. So I find it easier to do that. You do whatever suits you. That's just how I did it for this dress. Next, gather the stitch across the top of the sleeve to add some ease for when you attach it to the bodice. Next, it was time to close the sleeve seams and press it flat, adding a gather stitch around the lower edge of the sleeve from the opening of the hole that we finished, around, and then back to the other side. I usually add 2 rows of gathering stitches for stability. Next, you fold the sleeve band and sew between the big notches, leaving an opening, and then trim around the seam allowance, especially at the points of the band. Next, turn the band right side out and press. Turn in the unnotched edge and press as well. Next, you're going to pin the unturned side of the band to the sleeve and match the square to the sleeve seam. Adjust the gathers, baste, stitch, trim, and press. To finish off the band, you just slip stitch the edge. Now it's time to attach the sleeve to the armhole. So pin it in place, sew, and press the sleeve seam towards the sleeve. I also like to add a serged edge just to make sure that all of my edges are finished. Now it is time for the skirt. Now we sew the skirt sides to the fronts and backs, leaving the sides open for us to attach pockets. Stitch pockets to skirt sides, press seams towards the pockets. I also sew down the seam towards the pocket so that it creates a very nice understitch. Gather the upper edge of the skirt across the front from side to side and back from side to side. Pin the skirt to bodice matching the notches and adjust the gathers. Fold pockets towards front, sew the skirt to the bodice, and finish the edge. So now here comes the second part of the hack, is adding the gather. And I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning. I took the pattern of the skirt that they had provided, but instead of making it the full panel skirt, I only made it about 14 inches in length. I measured around the skirt that was attached to the bodice and then doubled that measurement for the length of the piece I need to cut, and then just made a 10-inch width band. I had to make mine in 2 pieces, so I just did a quick serge down the center to make a very long strip of fabric. Next, I did a gathering stitch across one top of the edge and then gathered it down to fit the width of the attached skirt. I sewed across the length of the gather, now attaching it to the skirt. Next, I attached the buttonholes, measuring them about 2 inches apart. I only put buttonholes down a certain length of the skirt because I knew that I was going to be able to take it on and take it off and not have to fully have it open from top to bottom. I just finished off by adding buttons. Last thing to do is just turning up the hem at the bottom, and it was finished. So here's the final dress. I'm so happy with how it turned out. It turned out way cuter than I originally thought it was going to be. There's something about making thrifted bedsheet dresses that just feels so right. Having something that is now secondhand and now being able to repurpose it. Also the fact that a bedsheet is probably the coziest thing that I want wrapped around my body, and now I get to wear it in a stylish fashion. This is just perfect. So I definitely had to work on this square neckline, just getting it to the right angle. So now it is level, so I hope that those tips help for anyone that wants to try it themselves. The one thing that I think that I could probably do without would be the ties at the sides. I think with adding the gather at the front, it does kind of make it a more cutesy look. In actuality, I'm probably going to take it out and then just have a regular sleeve like this. I think that this fits my style a lot better. The buttons down the front, the fit of the bodice, just everything worked out really well. I did have to take it in at the sides again afterwards, but that's kind of the beauty of making your own clothes, is problem solving, figuring out how to fix something, and then feeling so happy once you've done it. I'm so happy with how this dress turns out. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please consider subscribing and hitting the like button, leaving me a comment down below. All of those things really help me out and make me smile. I do have quite a few projects in the works right now, but because they are now part of another job that I'm doing, I can't fully show all of the things that I'm making, but I would like to take you along with the process of making some dance costumes that I'll be making for this current season. So many ideas are coming my way, and I'm just so happy that I get to be a part of this process again. It's been a while since I have, and doing little bits here and there throughout the years, I've finally been able to make it into something where I can actually work for it as a part-time job. I'm really excited to start on all of that work. I hope I can take you along for the journey, along with other projects that I'm going to be working on. It's not only going to be dance costume content, but I would like to show the process because it is very near and dear to my heart, and it is still sewing and crafting and some rhinestones and just like the full glam of it, which is something that I don't often do, so that'll be exciting. Stick around for my next video. I hope to be working on some more thrifted projects and some more home projects. My home is in desperate need of some TLC, so I hope you follow me along the journey, and until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.